You've arrived, Holmes. I confess I was uncertain you would. The mind of a man so committed to a logical universe seems ill-equipped for a subject as messy as this. I've been waiting here, in this room, a place of stark, clinical neutrality, thinking about the very thing that is neither neutral nor clinical. We've come to debate pain, or perhaps to dissect it. I believe it is a force that forges, that creates, that gives meaning. You, I suspect, see it as an error, a simple malfunction to be corrected. So, let us begin. What, to the great mind of Sherlock Holmes, is pain?
An interesting choice of venue, Rorschach. A blank canvas for two opposing views. You see it as a creative force, I see it as a data point. Pain, in its purest form, is a biological warning system. It is the body's eloquent, if unpleasant, message that something is wrong. A splinter, a broken bone, a fever, all are announced with the same undeniable urgency. This is not a matter of philosophy, but of physiology. To romanticize it as a forge is to ignore its fundamental utility as a diagnostic tool. It is a fact that exists, and like all facts, it should be approached with detachment. The question isn't what pain means, but what information it provides.
But information is meaningless without interpretation. You see a splinter as a fact, but I see a memory. The pain of the splinter is not just a warning, it is the feeling of a lesson learned, a reminder of carelessness, a brief taste of the world's indifference. The body may register a fact, but the mind translates it into a story. I've watched men endure unimaginable agony, and in the process, they were not merely receiving a message, they were being rewritten, they were becoming something else entirely. Pain carves a person, Holmes. It exposes their core, it reveals what they are truly made of. It is the brutal narrative of a world that forces us to change, whether we want to or not. What is a man without a narrative?
A man without a narrative, Rorschach, is simply a collection of his actions and their logical consequences. Your narrative is a self-serving tale we tell to make sense of the chaos. The agony you witness is not a tale of becoming, it is a tale of entropy. It is the gradual disintegration of the human spirit under an unbearable load. The change you speak of is often a devolution, a reversion to primal instinct. It creates monsters, not because they are inherently evil, but because their capacity for reason and empathy has been burned away by suffering. I believe it is far more honest to call pain a wound than a sculptor. It diminishes a person, it does not elevate them.
And yet, what of the heroes? What of the people who stare into that abyss and find not a monster, but a purpose? I have seen men who have lost everything, and instead of turning to bitterness, they have become a source of comfort to others. They have used their pain as a lantern to guide those who are lost in the same darkness. That is not entropy, Holmes, that is creation. It is the human spirit refusing to be defined by its wounds. It is the ultimate act of defiance. Your worldview, so focused on what is, fails to account for what could be. You see the immediate, logical effect, but not the delayed, illogical, and often beautiful reaction.
A beautiful reaction to a brutal act. It's a convenient fiction, Rorschach. Those you call heroes are merely outliers, statistical anomalies. Their actions, while commendable, do not change the fundamental nature of pain. The vast majority of suffering is senseless and serves no higher purpose. What purpose is there in the agony of a child, born with a terminal illness? Where is the noble lesson in a random act of violence? To search for meaning in such things is a desperate attempt to impose order on a chaotic universe. It is a defense mechanism against the terrifying reality that we are at the mercy of forces far beyond our control. Pain is a reminder of our fragile mortality, not an opportunity for growth.
It is precisely the senselessness of it that forces our hand. When faced with an indifferent universe, we have a choice. We can despair, or we can choose to create our own meaning. The suffering of the innocent is a wound in the world, and we, as human beings, are the only ones capable of putting a bandage on it. We choose to show compassion, not because the universe demands it, but because we choose to believe that empathy is stronger than indifference. Pain, in this sense, is not the lesson itself, but the catalyst for us to create one. It does not provide the answer, but it provides the test. It challenges us to be better than we are, even when the world is at its worst. It is a terrible gift, but a gift nonetheless.
You are suggesting, then, that pain's purpose is to be a moral compass, a brutal prodding towards virtue. But what of the psychological consequences? The scars that linger long after the wound has healed, the mistrust, the fear, the inability to truly connect with others. Your test leaves many broken, a casualty of a battle they never asked to fight. Your philosophy, while noble, seems to romanticize the very thing that destroys people. It is easy to speak of the nobility of suffering when you are not the one bearing the weight of it. Is it not more honest to admit that some pain is simply an affliction, a wound with no purpose but its own miserable existence, a constant reminder of our own fragility?
Perhaps it is an affliction, Holmes. But to see it as only that is to become its victim. It is to surrender to the very thing you claim is meaningless. I have learned that the only power we have is in how we respond. The scars do not have to be a sign of defeat. They can be a roadmap of survival. They can tell us where we have been, what we have overcome, and what we are capable of. The mistrust and fear you speak of are not a foregone conclusion. They are a choice, a difficult, agonizing choice, but a choice nonetheless. To see pain as nothing more than a wound is to deny the capacity for human resilience, a resilience that is often born from the crucible of suffering.
Resilience. I would call it survival, the instinct to endure, to outlast. It is a biological imperative, not a philosophical virtue. We are hardwired to avoid pain, to seek comfort. Your argument seems to defy the very nature of human existence. You are asking us to embrace the thing we are biologically programmed to flee from. You speak of a choice, but is it truly a choice when the alternative is to be broken entirely? Your romanticism, I fear, is a dangerous one. It encourages us to look for meaning where there is none, to endure needlessly when there are simpler, more logical ways to alleviate suffering. Is it not a greater act of compassion to simply end the pain?
To end the pain is to end the test. It is to deny the human spirit its most profound opportunity for growth. I'm not asking for a romanticization of suffering, Holmes, but a realistic acknowledgement of its power. We are not defined by what happens to us, but by what we do with what happens to us. Your logic-driven solutions would create a world of comfortable but hollow men, devoid of the very things that make them human: courage, empathy, and the capacity for love that is forged in the fires of shared hardship. The pain is not a virtue, but our response to it can be. We have the choice to either let it define us, or to define ourselves by it.
And so we come full circle. Your world is one narrative and meaning, my world is one of facts and logic. We see the same brutal reality, but we interpret its consequences in fundamentally different ways. I believe we must seek to eliminate pain, to find the most efficient and logical means to alleviate it. You believe we must endure it, to use it as a tool for self-discovery and virtue. I came here today to debate, but I see now that we are not arguing over the facts of pain, but over the very nature of humanity itself. There is no clear victor in this room, only two opposing truths. The conversation, it seems, has just begun.